The dark side is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural. But what would that look like in a TV series? And how does this new interview with Tony Gilroy change the rebellion? Welcome to Star Wars Uplink, your place for everything Star Wars gaming, the TV shows, and the movies. Let's jump in.
Just you reconsider playing that message for him.
So there is a image going around recently about a Vader series. And while it's not true, we wanted to hop into the discussion because I think it's a really fun topic to kind of break down what would a Vader series actually be like.
Yeah, man. I think it'd be pretty good.
I think there's some really key things here that we should break down when it comes to a Vader TV show. There's a love for the dark side. And I think there's a lot of pent-up demand for it. Other than like the extended universe, really. Like mostly in Legends did we really get to see like a deepening of the Sith. Like we haven't really gotten that when it comes to the canon material. Like
that's true.
We've gotten Palpatine coming back, but we haven't really explained how he got back. We have the Knights of Ren, but we haven't really seen much of the Knights of Ren. We have the High Republic. They have this group called the Nihil. That's not like the dark side. We have Dagan Gera in Jedi Survivor, and he's probably the clearest example of like an expanding of the Sith, or at least dark side user. We actually see him take his crystal and turn it red, which is really cool. I think that's one of the first on-screen depictions of that. Like we haven't seen anything happen like that in TV shows or the movies, and it's only happened in Jedi Survivor now.
That's wild. Man, Star Wars is lacking. Why haven't we seen this goodness of evil?
The goodness of evil. The book behind us that we always have, which is Battlefront 2 Inferno Squad, it deals a lot more with the dark side. Obviously, this is before Ian Versio's turn in the campaign for Battlefront 2. And I think it's one of the clearest examples of like how it can really work, because we see the dark side in a very different light. And we're going to talk about this later on in the episode when we go about Andor and the rebellion. But I think there's something that's lacking when we see the Empire, and it's the power behind the Empire. It's what Palpatine set up. It's what Palpatine came from. It's the rule of two, which we haven't seen anything about at all, really.
Yeah, we're severely lacking in some good badness. Like, oh man, just looking at the movies, yeah, we're all focused on the good side.
Yeah, which I think that's definitely going towards more of like the hero's journey of like Joseph Campbell, which makes sense, and I think that's a core part of what makes Star Wars work.
I guess that is the question. Can you make a good story out of bad characters? Not bad characters, but like evil characters. I mean, ultimately we do find out that Vader is not evil altogether. There was still good in him.
There's still good in him, I know.
So, I mean, that does make a complex character. Like that would make for a good story, because you could still kind of play.
And you get the hero's journey. Obviously, it's more like the villain's journey.
Right.
But you get you start from a lower spot, you have growth moments, and eventually there's the redemption that we see Darth Vader go into, fueled by, obviously, Luke Skywalker and his journey.
Yes.
But I think there's a way that you can have evil characters and humanize them. And we see a pretty good example of this when we look at Rogue One. Because Rogue One, I think, is that clear example. When you look at Krennic, you can really just feel his struggle and feel his journey throughout the Empire. He's someone that you can kind of root for, but also hate at the same time. And I think that's where the balance needs to be stricken. Like, I think there's so much that you can do with the dark side, with the Empire, and with like the evilness in Star Wars that you can't get when you get into the rebellion or you get into the light side. So I think that's definitely something. And then looking at Andor, like I think that's one of the clear examples of Dedra Meero. When you see Dedra in the first like half of really Andor, you're rooting for her. You want her to succeed. You want her to punch freaking Blevin in the face, just like politically, and be like, yeah, screw you, bro. You're failing at this. And I found the Empire, or I found the rebellion. When she does win, you're like, crap. Oh no, this is not bueno. This is no good.
Hang on, mess with your own evil characters. Don't come over here on my good side, like on the good with the good people. Don't touch them, please.
It's like, wait a second. Oh crap, this is what I was rooting for. Oh no. So I think there's definitely bits and pieces of that they can get into. But going back to what would a Vader series look like? I think the clearest example of this on screen is in Rogue One. We're going to be talking a lot about Rogue One today and Andor and just like general discussions on that, because I think that rides the line of what would really work in something along these lines is the hallway scene. That hallway scene, I was literally on the edge of my seat. When I watched that in theaters, I was like, oh my gosh, they're doing this? What? That is Darth Vader. That's the fear that he strikes when he shows up somewhere.
I think it would be a very interesting move to do a Vader series because he's such a beloved character, first of all.
Yeah.
And we have seen him in these moments, like moments of just fear. But then you would also have to try, potentially, I would assume, you would try to humanize him.
Oh, yeah. I think you have to. And there's such a depth there. And you have the struggle and the loss of Padme, and you have the real like struggle for control when you look at his relationship with Palpatine. And then you get into the like flashbacks that they could have to the prequel series and the Clone Wars and these different areas of like, how can you bring Vader and humanize him in a way that you haven't seen him before? And I think it needs to be done in a way that you can relate to him on a human level. Like you can understand where his rage and his hatred comes from, but I don't think it needs to be anything more than that. Like that's where you stop relating to him. And then immediately after, you're like, oh my gosh, he is literally a monster.
Well, yeah, you would need those Dedra Miro moments of like, man, I can really relate to you. I want you to win sort of thing. But then that quick turn of like, oh no, you are a force that is bad. Like we should not support you in this. And just like having that audience interaction of that conflict, that would be really quite the something.
And I think the thing that Obi-Wan did, I've said many times I'm not a fan of Obi-Wan as a show, and I think it failed miserably in all aspects. But one aspect that I think people would really enjoy that a Vader show could really do is fill in the middle gaps between the prequels and the original trilogy, and show the flashbacks of Hayden and Ewan, Obi-Wan and Anakin bonding, and you see more so. I think the development of the character should be what Vader lost when he went that direction rather than what he can gain going forward. It's more so like a reflection and a retrospective on him as a character and breaking down like what made him go this far and what keeps him going.
Yeah, it would be really, really interesting to see that, like on that note of like what built him up and then how he's just fueled by pretty much the killing of all of that. Yeah. Like just constantly having to remember that Anakin is dead and like all this like internal like anger and all that just to make him stronger, more powerful. And
I think that's where it works so well is that like you said, I think it's a great point of Anakin being dead, because in all intents and purposes that is true in canon, in lore, in all of that. Anakin is dead. Anakin has been killed in the massacre against the Jedi, and coincidentally Vader has shown up at the exact same time. But they're two different people. And that's what I find really fun about Thrawn as a character. He finds out that Darth Vader and Anakin are the same person. And he's like,
he's just like pushing little buttons, being like, yeah, so this Jedi I once knew.
Yeah, there's this one guy. His name rhymed with dancing kid. Schmanikin. No, Anakin. Yeah, that guy. He was pretty cool. And then Vader's like,
Yeah, it's a good time. It's a good time had by Thrawn.
Yeah. Have you read Lords of the Sith?
No, I have not.
This is one of my favorite books in canon, and it is canon. And it's a mission with Vader and Palpatine. And all throughout the entire mission, you have Vader really struggling, like, okay, we need to work together very closely to survive. But this is an awesome opportunity. If I really wanted to, I could probably kill Palpatine right now. So you get a lot of the inner monologue of Palpatine and Vader and their relationship and what makes it work, what makes it really break when it comes down to it. And it's all on this one mission, and you see a very different view of Vader and Palpatine, because they are on the ground, they are working a mission together, which is very rare when you look at things, and even in canon now, or even honestly in Legends, you didn't see that a whole lot when it comes down to Vader and Palpatine. I highly recommend it. It's a very good book, and it's a pretty easy read too.
Yeah, that is something that I don't know, like the angle that you would go at for a Vader show or series. Like,
I think it would have to be so flashback focused.
You would have to. I mean, just to be able to get that monologue that you can't get in writing, like you're not gonna have some one voiceover the inner dialogue of Vader, and you don't really get all that much facial expression.
Yeah.
He's masked. But actually, to be fair, Mando is a perfect example of like how you can get expression across even with a masked character.
Oh yeah.
So, but still, it would have to be so heavily flashback heavy. But like,
I think that would work.
Yeah, but like, what do you focus on in a Vader show? I mean, obviously, it's Vader.
You could do it almost like Andor style, where you have basically like mini movies within the series. Like if it is, let's just say it's a 6-episode run or something like that. You have like the first 2 episodes is like early on in Vader's life. You have like another, like the middle 2 episodes are Palpatine and Vader on a mission, like really testing that relationship. And then you have maybe Vader later on in his lifespan, like as he finds out about Luke, like you have the background of what he's looking like. Like you could cover a lot of ground with just 6 episodes. And you could have like a through line, like maybe the flashbacks are like the guiding through line that he's constantly reflecting onto throughout his experience. Let's just say the first part where he's like really fresh in the Vader, like he is so deep in the loss and mourning of Padme. And then you see like a flashback of him and Padme and like Obi-Wan and their relationship. And maybe they're on another mission, and what Vader is utilizing in the Vader aspect of the show is showing like some of the things he learned on that mission, and you just see that called back in each of those 2 episodes sets.
Yeah, it's almost like you would need a bigger theme outside of Vader to just tie all of it together, because clearly Vader is a very complex character. So you can't just smack Vader into any like just a random story situation. You can, but it would be a lot better of a story to have that theme to just continually like pull out these moments from Vader to be like, no, look, he's still going through things, and this is why he is still good,
Yeah.
Or not. Or like, I don't know.
I think that's where you have to go. Like you said, like there needs to be this underlying like theme or mission or like structure when it comes to Vader as a character, because he's more of a vessel. But I'd love to see more of like him processing things in like the vat that he gets into, or like that sealed room where he can like truly feel all of like the pain and everything, and like really immerse himself in that past self. And I think that would be super cool to see really come to fruition when we look at like Vader.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
It'd be really interesting just to have like a portion of an episode. I'm not even talking like a whole episode, but of just getting to see these emotions of when the suit is off.
Yeah.
Who is
or
he?
even it could be like flashbacks, and like or the main like episode itself is a flashback, but in between that, like you see different parts of his like suit getting taken off, and like different like just the pain and like the visual like representation of the struggle that like Vader has internally reflected on his wounds.
And you get those flashbacks that just reinstate how he became this. That could be powerful.
Yeah. That's what I think could be so fun with this type of series, and could really like highlight the strengths of Vader as a character. And I mean, there's obviously too something that we haven't even talked about yet is the Inquisitorius, because that is his group.
That's true.
So that could be like the guiding force. Like it could be a mission with the Inquisitorius hunting down these Jedi, because he was a big part of that and built the Inquisitorius to help him with that reach across the galaxy.
And like what?
Or it could be the founding of.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Thinking like, what about like just the beginning of that? Almost like a Luke's beginning for that school, but
Finding
it's the
the
dark
Grand
side
Inquisitor.
version. Like, Whoa.
I would love that. Imagine it could just be called Inquisitorius.
Yeah.
Like a Star Wars story or something like that.
Intense.
Like the underarching theme is what Vader's mission, but also you have like the guiding underpinning of like this is the overarching goal, which is the Inquisitorius and the Inquisitors and building that up. But then like the real reason that you're really like seeing all of this is because of Vader. That would be awesome. And the
pain and like the struggle that he has had with the Jedi throughout his entire life, really, and the injustice that he's suffered and yet still struggles with, and like, oh man, could you imagine?
That would be so good. But like looking at that, seeing the Inquisitorius, seeing Vader, and we talked about this earlier, we have Rogue One as like the clear example of like one of the best scenes of Vader ever, like really showcasing why you should fear him as a character.
At least in this modern day.
And on screen, I should say. And then we get to, this is the thing that is really awesome about what Andor did to change Star Wars, is we see a different view of the rebellion. And Tony Gilroy in a recent interview had a really good kind of breakdown of what it means when you look at the rebellion, when you look at what Andor and Luthen are building and the different parts and like different areas, what Mon Mothma's trying to do in parallel to all of that. Like you have a balance there. And he says this, speaking on the Dagobah Dispatch podcast, and he talked about the moral complexity of this specific part of the galaxy. Quote, if your business is based on paranoia and secrecy and death, how do you expand your business? How do you go public? How do you go wide? The rebel alliance that emerges on Yavin, it's almost like the Christian Democrats. It's a consolidated compromise group. But what happens to all the original gangsters and the hardcore people who built that road? What happens to them, and how do they integrate with that? So like really building like the people that made the rebellion are the people that are willing to go to Aldhani, kill people, and disrupt the payroll of the Empire using the most extreme methods we've seen in Star Wars up to this point in that canon. At this point of the timeline, this is the furthest the rebellion has done because the Empire didn't even know there was a rebellion.
True.
Where does that's the foundation of the rebellion. And then eventually we get to the Republic and the New Republic. And what does it look like to rebuild? What does it look like to go against the Empire? And what does it look like to eventually get to A New Hope? The Empire Strikes Back, and then the fall of the second Death Star. Like what the foundation starts off with what Nemec was saying in his manifesto of like, if we are to defeat the Empire, we're going to need to utilize the same tools. The Empire is using assassins and paid mercenaries. Well, we should too. Otherwise, we're missing out on an advantage that we can take.
It is really important, I think, that we have something like Andor, that we have this reminder that good isn't just always good.
Yeah.
It takes the bold actions of very human people to make changes, and just the flaws of things. It's so good to have that reminder and to see that no one's really right, like the Empire could have worked out, and yes, it would have been corrupt, but it's always going to be corrupt. Like there's never a perfect system. And
you see, like we see in Mandalorian season 3 in particular, you see the New Republic is just as bad as the Empire was. You see how the tool that the Empire used as like a torture method, they're still utilizing as like therapy, coping skills on what's his name, the scientist, the cloning doctor.
Yeah.
What you see him go through is something that the Empire was just using on the regular. And, oh no, this is not the same thing. This is something entirely different. We've repurposed it, even though it still does the exact same thing and goes up to 11.
It still has the max dial. Yeah. Like, come on, guys.
If you were truly trying to step away from the troubled past of the Empire, one, you wouldn't be hiding from it like they are in that space. And this is after all of the things that Andor does to disrupt the Empire, and then ultimately to the destruction of the Death Star, which all from like a little mistake in an alleyway on this little tiny backwater planet. Like this is all from this one tiny moment, has this big effect, ultimately destroying what the Empire is. And you have the New Republic still making the same mistakes. And I think it's very clear when you see them go to that old empirical ship, and they're looking for some of the stuff that he can make like a mobile base with. And they are so scared that the Empire is going to come back that they are actively burning down and taking apart these old empirical ships when they're perfectly fine. They could have been utilized. They have the technology that the New Republic needs. They could totally repurpose them, but it's such a symbol that they are scared to utilize it because they're so scared of the Empire coming back. But they're at the same time, they're fueling what the Empire needs to rebuild itself.
It's true. It's kind of the hypocrisy in all cases of like fighting the Empire by using the Empire's tactics and not wanting to use the Empire's things and yet still using their torture devices repurposed. Like,
yeah.
Come on, guys. What is it? Like, what are we doing here? Are we trying to make something new? Clearly not. Clearly, we're just repurposing and trying to put a better spin on what was, because there's just still that fear. And it's really, I think that is the message, is that fear will make us do these things. Yeah.
It's the whole trope in like anything that has a prophecy, you trying to make the prophecy fail ultimately ends up fulfilling the prophecy. I think it's that in just a different flavor when you look at Andor and when you look at Mandalorian and when you look at all these different pieces of what power does to corrupt in Star Wars. What does it look like when you see this part of things really broken down to, okay, we're going to use the same methods. We're going to use the exact same strategies, but even more gruesome, because that's what we need to do to win in the Empire. That is what we need to do to fight this massive ideal that is the Empire, that is Palpatine, that is the Stormtroopers, that is everything, while also trying at the same time to disrupt what people see the Empire as, of what people see rebellion as. There's many planets in the universe of Star Wars that are perfectly fine with being empirical run. They benefit from it greatly, but there's other planets that just do not. So on the one point, for some planets, the rebellion is this light and this redemptive force and this place for good in the galaxy. And then on the complete opposite side, you have planets that are like, these are terrorists. These are people that are going to disrupt my comfortable way of living. We as viewers know that, what the rebellion is doing is the better thing. It's the good part. We know from the history and we know from our perspectives that the rebellion is doing a good thing because they are going to help people. But at the same time, they're going to destroy the freaking Death Star and kill millions of people.
It's true. It's like you have to just side with the intentions, where the Empire is run by a really evil dude. And, well, several evil dudes, really. And and the rebellion is coming from this intention of goodness and wanting to restore peace and equality and all these things, all these good things, but that it does have to be rooted in the equivalent of what the Empire is. Very fascinating. It makes characters like Mon Mothma even more intriguing.
Yes, because she's like true good. But at the same time can see the benefits and is struggling within the system to pull anything off, and is like, you know what, I really wish I could do this. But at the same time,
and she really wishes she could do this without getting her hands dirty. But at the same time,
she's gruesome, like she's brutal, but in like the right way. Like she's trying to play the system in the proper way. And I think the thing that really like hits this home is we need to remember that Luke wanted to go to the Empirical Academy. Like he wanted to go there because that was his path off world. And you have so many people within the Empire that are like that. They see the Empire as a stepping stone to get out of their planet. Hey, what are some of the ways? Good paying job, benefits, really consistent. It can help your family a lot. It also aligns you with the most powerful force in the galaxy.
Adventure.
adventure, exploration, a chance to see the world and the galaxy and generally do something right from that viewpoint. But at the same time, you have to also say, oh, crap, Empire might not actually be good. But I'm going to do it because it's going to help my family. But you have all these people that were in the Death Star that are probably a good portion of them thought they were doing the right thing or were trying to do something right for their families. And they got murdered by the rebellion.
Yeah, it's rough. It's real rough.
It's taking the idea of from a certain point of view and really like stretching it and making it show that that's not a good thing. Certain point of view hurts a lot of people. And facilitates it's like in Harry Potter for the greater good. Like let's destroy the Muggles and use them as like stepping blocks so we can do it for the greater good.
Right, because they just need to be led in.
Just really makes me appreciate what Andor did and really shows how strong of like a storytelling group and just passion that the whole team had for telling a good story and also changing what we see at like making it make sense why the Empire fell, why the rebellion won. And just really making it gritty. Like Luthen's monologue and speech, wanting to be the wick that lights the fire of the rebellion, knows that he's trying to build a future that he will never see because he's done terrible things and this is his lot in life. This is what he deserves, but he knows that he's doing the right thing. Oh my gosh. That is powerful.
Yeah. It's so interesting, just that play again on like no one of just intention and like the perspectives, like you're saying. We can stand behind the rebellion because we see it as a force of good.
And we know where the story ends.
Yeah. But ultimately, they're both doing the same thing.
Yeah.
They're both pretty much just trying to unite the galaxy. And one's just doing it more forcefully than the other.
Yeah. Let us know your thoughts on this. What do you think when it comes to Andor and the Rebellion? And what do you think a Vader series would be like? Let us know in the comments or contact at uplinkpodcast.com. Hey, make sure to check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, and rate us and leave us a review. It helps us out a ton, and it really supports the show completely free. Greatly appreciate seeing that feedback and helps other people find the show. But as always, hey, thanks for listening. Check out our YouTube channel for even deeper dives into lore, as well as the video version of the podcast if you're listening to this on all the platforms. Wherever you find podcasts, you can find us. As always, thanks for listening, and may the Force be with you.